Yeah, what's poppin', guys? Sizzle here, and today I'm going to be showing you the best controller setup for Dolphin for Mario Kart Wii specifically. The reason I say Mario Kart Wii specifically is most other games with the default controller settings where just every button is bound to the same thing work completely fine. Most games you can hold a controller comfortably and just play the game, but for some reason when it came to Mario Kart Wii, the developers decided to bind 4 different trick inputs to up, left, right, and down on the D-pad, while having you need to press every other button, like your controller, joysticks, I guess, your buttons all around, all the stuff like that. You had to press all of it for some reason, which means the only way that competitive players are able to reach all this stuff in a good amount of time to be able to react to what's going on the track is they use something called a claw grip. And for me personally, I find the claw grip to be extremely uncomfortable and just annoying to use when I'm playing, games that are kind of relaxing like Mario Kart. I just want to be able to hold a controller normally and play the game. And as such, I've come up with the controller config I'm about to show you. With that unnecessarily long intro out of the way, I'm also going to add a little disclaimer here and say that this will not be a perfect setup. However, if you are not the most competitive of competitive players, this will be more than good enough for you. I think for 95% of the entire player base, this will be perfect. The exception being if you're a very, very high level time trials player, and specifically very, very high. If you're not the highest of high level time trial players, this is still good enough for you. And maybe if you're the most competitive versus players, you'll need all these inputs as well. But I think even for those people, this setup is probably good enough most of the time. Anyway, let's go over the controllers, and I'll show you the config I use. So it's a GameCube controller. I'm not using a Wii Remote. I don't know why there's a Wii Remote 3 set up to something, but yeah, port 1 GameCube controller, standard controller. You hit configure, and you'll see here, right, everything I have bound is bound the same way for the most part, right? Left joystick is the left joystick, right joystick is the right joystick. A button is the B button. The B button is the A button here is the B button. B button here is the A button. Y button X. X button Y, because the Xbox controller does it inverted. You can see here, right? I'm pressing B right now. You can't see it on the input thing because for some reason I can't have both of them active. This is me pressing B, A, Y, and then X, right? So I have it bound that way. I have the start button bound to the little plus button. I have the Z button, which you never use in Mario Kart, bound to select, because why not? And then this is where my settings differ from the standard kind of thing, because normally you'd be like, okay, well, so the 4 D-pads are the 4 D-pads. But you'll notice when I'm pressing D-pad up, it's bound to left analog. So I'm going to go explain all that real quick. So first what I did is I went to the D-pad thing, and I had every D-pad thing bound to the correct button, right? So up, down, left, right, we're all doing the same thing. But as I came to realize, the up D-pad button is the most essential of all the D-pad buttons to be able to press, because the up D-pad button lets you do wheelies, and it lets you do like up tricks, which are generally 9 times out of 10 the best type of trick to be doing in the game. So as such, instead of having it bound to up on the D-pad, I have it bound to the left front trigger right here. You can see me pressing on the little input display. That is what I have bound. If I go back here, you can see up on the D-pad is bound to shoulder L. And that lets you just do wheelies and do tricks most of the time really conveniently. It's on the button where your finger's already going to be hovering a lot of the time. Then we have the next thing, which is the back left analog. And you'll notice that is still the back left analog because that's tied to item use. And I mean, you use items all the time in versus, time trials, whatever. Items are a core part of Mario Kart. You want that to be pretty accessible as well. And as such, the back left trigger is where I found that works best. Then another really obvious one is the front right trigger. I have bound to right analog. And that's just, yeah, that's to drift, right? It's pretty straightforward. Front right bound to right analog to be able to drift, and that way I have drift and wheelie on the front 2 buttons right here, so they're the most accessible things, and that's what you're doing most of the time, right? Items, while you do use them a lot, they're not constantly being used. You are constantly drifting or wheeling or tricking as you're going through a stage. When you need to press items, though, it's right behind, you know, that trigger. It's very easy to press. And then that brings me to the final inputs that I have kind of custom bound, which is the back right analog, which I have bound to, I think, D-pad right. And that's because this lets you do side tricks, which are used for low tricks. Mainly low tricks. I mean, they're used in a few other places as well, but they're also used for low tricks off of like bumpers and stuff, like on Bowser Castle 3. And this is super essential to have, right? Obviously, you want left tricks as well if it's possible, but with a standard Xbox controller, you don't really have another slot available for any of that. I guess something you could do, and something I guess I'll just do right now, because why not, is I can bind the little X button on the left here, because, you know, this left button isn't used for anything. This top button here, which is Y on an Xbox controller, but is X on like a Nintendo one, this is used to look behind you, which I do sometimes. This button isn't used for anything that I can remember, so I'm going to bind this to the other D-pad direction. So D-pad left, I'm going to bind to that button, and then I'm going to have to rebind this to, you know, D-pad left or whatever. And there you go. And that way you have both low tricks and the up tricks available that make you like fall faster and all that. Because these are the essential tricking buttons that you need. Down tricks definitely do have a use case, but it's super, super niche. It's generally tied to zipper tech, which most people never even do in the first place. And as such, they're kind of not essential or bound to anything. But yeah, this is my control setup. It is a little bit jank, and it definitely for those side tricks, it'll be a little bit of getting used to. But like I said, you barely use side tricks. You do use them on a good amount of maps, just not all of them. But anything with bumpers, side tricks are super, super nice to have to be able to do those low tricks. All right, let me just do a quick demonstration of this, you know, control scheme in use to kind of be able to show off exactly how I use it on a day-to-day. But yeah, we're going off to the Seamland, so I think it's a pretty good place to demonstrate most things. It's pretty straightforward how a lot of it is used. All right, so the front left bumper here to, you know, do wheelie-laid things like readjusting at the start. B button is A. Front right to be able to drift. Right, front left, it again right there to do most tricks. And to be able to wheelie like this. If I then hit a wall or something like this, lose all my speed, do a standstill, it's just A and B. And then I can use that right into a wheelie with the front left again. If I want to then use like a mushroom or something for some reason, it's just the back left. And if I want to do like a side trick, let's say for some reason I want a side trick here, which you don't want to, you see back right works just fine for that. Everything is working fine, right? Working as intended. To turn, like, look behind you, right? We have the Y or X button, right? Pretty straightforward. To do low tricks, which are going to come up right here on these little bumper-like things right here, yet again, it's just, you know, press the back right button. Pretty simple stuff. It all kind of just works. This will take some getting used to, don't get me wrong. But yeah, that's most of that. And then, you know, let's say for some reason I want to stream through this grass, just the back left button like that. Right? Everything's just working. Every button, everything you need to press is just openly available for you. You're able to just kind of like play the game without having to hold your controller in a super weird way in order to be able to accomplish that. And yeah, with that being said, hopefully you guys found this useful. Let me know in the comments if you have any other bindings you guys use that maybe are a bit more useful. And with that being said, I'll see you in the next one. Have a great rest of your day.